Chosen one. Perhaps being invisible does not mean being forgotten. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed that there are rooms where a person can stand among 20 others and still be the only one no one turns to look at? Not because you've done anything wrong, not because you're lacking anything. It's simply that, sometimes, every gaze in the room passes over you, pauses on someone else, and then moves on, as if you were nothing more than an empty space between the faces that capture everyone's attention. If that feels familiar to you, don't scroll past this video. There is something waiting to be seen today, something very different from what you've always believed about the silence surrounding you. Chosen one, stay with me for a little while. Not because you need another beautiful promise, but because something is quietly unfolding within you, something you may not yet fully recognize, even now, as you're still listening. In the book of Psalms, there is a verse that countless believers have held on to for generations, that there is one who searches every heart and knows each person completely, who knows when you sit down, when you rise up, and even the thoughts that have not yet become words within you. Chosen one. This is not an empty reassurance. It is a way of seeing that many faithful people have relied upon through the darkest seasons of their lives. There is a layer of life that the human eye cannot reach. Like a seed resting beneath the soil, nothing appears to be happening on the surface. Yet underneath, roots are quietly reaching deeper, preparing for the day they must stand firm. While you're measuring what you don't yet have, what you haven't yet accomplished, and what others have not yet given you, something else is still taking shape, slowly, patiently, and faithfully. Without noise, without display, without needing an audience. You may not be able to feel it right now. You may only see your small room, the soft yellow light, and an emptiness that words cannot fully describe. But perhaps that very stillness is where something important is laying its foundation. Chosen one, carry this question with you throughout today's journey. What would change if you truly believed you have never been alone, not even in your loneliest moment? Let's begin with a deeply human question. Why do we need someone else's recognition before we can believe we have value? Chosen one, this is not your weakness. It is a natural part of being human. From the earliest days of your life, you learned who you were through the eyes of others, through your parents' smiles, your teachers' praise, and the attention of those around you. But then you grew older, and you discovered something far more difficult to accept. Not everyone sees what you carry inside. You've spoken during meetings and no one remembered. You've poured quiet effort into your work and no one acknowledged it. You've stood in crowded rooms, yet somehow felt completely invisible. The Bible tells a story many people return to when reflecting on moments like these. When the prophet Samuel was sent to a family's home to find the man who would become Israel's next king, he looked at each of the older sons one by one. Each appeared impressive, each carried himself like someone worthy of being chosen. But Samuel was reminded that people look at outward appearance, while what truly matters lies somewhere human eyes cannot reach. The youngest son wasn't even in the room. He was out in the fields, tending sheep, doing work no one considered important. No one thought to call him inside. No one believed he deserved consideration. Chosen one, perhaps that is exactly where you find yourself today. Not because you lack ability, not because you haven't worked hard enough, but because some of the most important things, according to what many believers hold true, are not determined by what happens inside crowded rooms. Imagine finishing work one evening. You're exhausted. You wish someone would ask how you're doing. But your phone stays silent, and everyone around you is occupied with their own lives. You say nothing. You quietly put your phone back into your pocket and keep walking as though everything is fine. This is the experience many people have quietly carried. the feeling of making every effort, yet never being seen. And the same question always returns. Is it worth continuing when it seems like no one even notices? Chosen one, allow yourself to sit with that question for a moment instead of rushing toward an answer. Because something more important than answering it is learning to face this pain honestly rather than avoiding it. You're not weak because it hurts when your efforts go unnoticed. You're not asking too much because you long for someone to recognize what you've given. You're simply human, with a need that has always been part of what it means to be human. Yet there is something many believers believe is worth considering. A person's value, in the deepest sense, has never truly been determined by how many people recognize it. It exists before anyone notices. It exists even when no one notices. It exists whether anyone ever notices or not. Chosen one, this isn't meant to convince you to stop wanting to be understood. It's simply another way of seeing, one that keeps you from placing your entire sense of worth into the hands of people who may simply be too busy, too limited, or too overwhelmed to truly see you. Perhaps your value has never depended on whether someone recognized it. Chosen one, think again, more slowly this time, about the moments when you tried so hard to be seen. Maybe it was a project into which you poured your whole heart, only for others to nod politely before moving on to the next subject. Maybe it was an honest thought you shared during a conversation, only to receive a brief, distracted reply, as though what you had just revealed wasn't important enough to linger over. Those moments accumulate over time. By themselves they seem small, but together they become something heavy. The feeling that no matter how hard you try, it will never be enough to make someone truly stop and really see you. Chosen one, I don't want you to believe that feeling is wrong. It's real, and it deserves to be acknowledged, not brushed aside with hurried encouragement. But another truth exists as well, one that's harder to see because it lies much deeper. Even if the people around you are unable to see you completely, that does not mean you are truly unseen. It simply means that those people, with all their very human limitations, may not yet be capable of doing what perhaps something greater has been doing all along. Not because they're cruel, not because they're trying to ignore you, but because they, just like you, carry their own burdens, their own limitations, and the relentless demands of their own lives. Chosen one, this doesn't mean you must forgive immediately. Nor does it mean you should stop feeling hurt. It simply invites you to begin separating two things that may have been tangled together for far too long: other people's lack of attention and your true worth. Now, chosen one, let yourself step into a place that may be more familiar than you'd like to admit. A small room late at night. No sounds, no one knocking at the door, only the dim glow of your phone and a screen with no new messages. You've been there before. Maybe after an exhausting day at work. Maybe after a phone call no one answered. Maybe after sending a message, waiting, and receiving nothing in return. You look around the room. It's become so familiar that you've stopped noticing its smallest details. The chair where you always sit, the section of wall your eyes always drift toward, the silence you've slowly learned to live with. There are nights when you wonder whether anyone would truly notice if you disappeared tomorrow, not because you wish for something tragic to happen, but because the silence has lasted so long that you've begun questioning your place in the lives of the people around you. Chosen one, I won't rush to comfort you here, because this pain deserves to be called by its true name, not softened with empty cliches. You have tried. You have been patient. You have endured in silence. And sometimes, the deepest pain isn't what other people have done to you. It's the emptiness of what they never did. They never checked in. They never noticed. They never remembered. There are mornings when you wake up feeling as though you're carrying something far too heavy, yet no one has any idea just how heavy it is. You still smile when it's expected. You still answer, "I'm fine," whenever someone asks. But inside, there is an emptiness you've never spoken about to anyone. Perhaps that is what has exhausted you more than anything else. Not the hardship itself, but having to face it alone, over and over again, with no one beside you to help carry its weight. Chosen one, I won't tell you that this feeling will disappear tomorrow. Nor will I promise that someone is about to walk into your life and fill this empty space, because that would not be honest about what you're truly experiencing. What I want you to hear right now is simply this. Perhaps this silence has never been a sign that you've been forgotten. It may simply be a sign that you're in the middle of a season that many believers consider necessary, a season no one else can walk through with you, because this is a period meant uniquely for you and for something that is quietly taking shape within you. You don't have to understand all of this right now. You don't have to feel better immediately either. Just know this. Your pain is being seen, even if not by the eyes you've grown accustomed to looking for. Chosen one, let me ask you another question, one that reaches a little deeper than the first. Why is it that the people who receive the least attention are often the very ones carrying something that simply needs more time to mature? In the book of Genesis, there is the story of a woman named Hagar. She was treated unjustly, driven away from the place she once belonged, and eventually found herself alone in the wilderness, with no shelter, no one to turn to, and no one to call for help. She believed she was completely alone. There was no one left, nowhere left to go. Yet in what seemed to be the deepest point of abandonment, she encountered something that would later shape the very name she gave to the one who met her there. The God who sees. Not the God who sees only after everything has been made right, but the God who sees in the middle of the wilderness, at the very moment she believed no one could see her anymore. Chosen one, this is not a story meant to convince you that suffering is something to seek. It is a story meant to remind you that the moments when you feel completely alone, completely forgotten, completely invisible, may actually be the very moments when something profoundly important is being recognized, even if not in the way you expected. Think about it from another perspective. Have you ever noticed that the most valuable things in life, a deep relationship, true mastery of a skill, genuine maturity of character, are never formed in an instant? They require a long, quiet process. A process that is usually witnessed by no one. No one sees the roots of a tree growing beneath the ground. People only notice the tree once it has grown tall enough to rise above the surface. No one watches a person learning patience, learning forgiveness, learning how to stand again after falling. People only see the outcome once it has become visible. Chosen one, perhaps you're in the season of roots, not the season of branches that everyone notices. And that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're living through a part of the journey that is absolutely necessary, even though you cannot yet see the whole picture. It isn't other people's attention that makes you who you are. It isn't their praise that defines you. It's what you continue to hold on to in quiet faithfulness, even when no one applauds, that is shaping the person you're becoming. You may ask, then, when will this change? When will I finally be seen? Those are deeply human questions, and I don't dismiss them. But perhaps the question worth holding on to a little longer isn't when. Perhaps it's, who am I becoming while I wait? Being seen doesn't always begin where you expect it to. Sometimes it begins with a quiet transformation inside you first, a new steadiness, a new understanding of your own worth, long before anything around you begins to change. Chosen one, think again about Hagar's story. The remarkable part isn't only that she was seen in the wilderness. What's even more remarkable is that after that encounter, she was no longer the same woman. She carried with her a new understanding of who she was, an understanding that no future hardship, no matter how severe, could ever take away again. That is the difference between waiting for an outward event to change your life and allowing an inward realization to change the way you walk through every circumstance, whether life unfolds as you hoped or not. Chosen one, perhaps you're waiting for something very specific. A phone call, an apology, a change in the way someone treats you. That is completely natural, and I'm not asking you to stop hoping that good things may still come. But I do want you to consider something. If you place your entire sense of peace in waiting for that one thing to happen, you're handing an external circumstance the authority to determine how you feel about your own life. And that is an enormous amount of power to give to something you cannot control. Instead, perhaps what is more enduring, what no person and no circumstance can ever take away, is a new awareness of your own worth. A recognition that begins from within and does not have to wait for anything outside of you to validate it first. Chosen one, let me leave you with an image to carry in your heart, not just for today, but for the days ahead. Think of a priceless sculpture, the kind that, once completed, is placed in the most honored setting for thousands of people to admire. But do you know where that masterpiece is actually created? Not in the middle of a public square, not beneath the lights of a grand stage, not before the eyes of a crowd. It is shaped inside a small, enclosed workshop, often without windows, where there is only the craftsman and the unfinished work. Stone dust fills the air. The first strikes of the chisel bear almost no resemblance to the beauty the sculpture will one day reveal. No one is allowed to step inside halfway through the process, not because there is something to hide, but because a masterpiece still in the making can easily be damaged by hurried eyes and premature judgments. Chosen one, perhaps your small room, the place where you feel the loneliest, the place where you feel the least noticed, is that workshop. In the letter to the Ephesians, there is a passage many believers return to when reflecting on this truth, that each person is God's workmanship, created for a purpose prepared in advance, even though they cannot always see the process unfolding. You don't need to understand the entire blueprint right now. You don't need to see the finished masterpiece before its time. The only thing you need to believe is that what is happening within this silence is not being wasted. Think back to a season in your past, a difficult chapter you once couldn't understand. Perhaps now, looking back, you realize that it was precisely that season which formed part of the person you are today. A patience you never had before, a compassion you didn't know you possessed, an inner strength you discovered only when standing firm became your only option. If that has been true before, then perhaps something similar is quietly happening within you right now, not as a future result waiting to arrive, but as a transformation already underway, even if you cannot yet fully recognize it. Chosen one, if these words are touching something within your journey, I want you to know that you don't have to rush away. Perhaps at this very moment you're simply sitting through an ordinary evening, surrounded by scattered thoughts, and happen to stop here. If that's true, allow yourself to stay a little longer, not because of any promise being made, but because sometimes a quiet moment to reflect is exactly what your heart needs. If these reflections have meant something to you, a simple like isn't a condition for receiving any blessing. It's simply a way of saying, I'm still listening. I'm still here. and I'm walking alongside everyone else who is quietly traveling a journey much like my own. Perhaps the place that seems forgotten is actually the place where something is being beautifully completed. Chosen one, this is the moment I want you to truly pause, to truly slow down. And let these next thoughts sink into you, not merely through your mind, but through something deeper. How long have you waited for someone to finally notice you? How many years have you lived with the questions, am I good enough? Am I worthy of being noticed? Do I truly matter to anyone? Think once more about King David, the shepherd boy who wasn't even called into the room when his father welcomed the prophet, would later become one of the most remembered kings in the history of faith. But that isn't the remarkable part. The remarkable part is this. Before anyone recognized him, he was already known. Recognition came later. His worth was there from the very beginning. Chosen one, this may be the single most important truth I hope you carry with you after this video. You don't have to wait for someone else to recognize you before you begin believing that you have value. You don't have to collect enough compliments before allowing yourself to feel that you are enough. You don't have to wait for that crowded room to finally turn and notice you before giving yourself permission to stand tall and keep moving forward. Because perhaps, and this is something believers have lived by for generations, your worth has never needed recognition in order to be complete. Imagine someone who has spent years waiting and then, one day, finally stops. Not because they've stopped trying, not because they've stopped hoping, but because they've stopped placing their sense of worth into the hands of people who may simply never have the ability to truly see them. That person takes a deep breath, looks at themselves, and for the first time in a very long while, feels lighter. Not because their circumstances have changed, not because someone finally spoke the words they had longed to hear, but because they rediscovered something that had always been there, hidden beneath years of waiting for someone else's approval. Chosen one, perhaps you don't need a crowded room to recognize your worth, because there is a presence that countless believers trust has never taken its eyes off you. Not because you're perfect, not because you've never failed, but because perhaps the worth you've spent so many years searching for in the eyes of others has been within you all along, waiting for you to finally recognize it. Chosen one, do you need to become someone else in order to be worthy of being seen? Do you need to achieve something greater in order to be worthy of being loved? Perhaps not. What you need may simply be to stop for a moment and allow yourself to believe that this is true. This is not a promise that people will treat you differently tomorrow. This is an invitation for you to begin treating yourself differently, starting today. Chosen one, then what changes when someone truly stops waiting for recognition from the outside? It is not that they become cold, distant, or no longer need anyone. Human beings will always need connection, need to be loved, and need a sense of belonging. What changes lies somewhere else, somewhere far more subtle. They begin doing what they do, not to wait for someone to notice them, but because what they are doing already has meaning in itself, even when no one sees it. The book of Colossians contains an encouragement that many believers continue to apply to their everyday work. Whatever you do, do it with all your heart, as though you were doing it for something greater than what human eyes can measure, rather than simply to please those who are watching. Chosen one, think about how this applies to your own life. The work you do each day still has value, even if no one praises it. The patience you continue to show the people around you, even if no one notices, is quietly shaping who you are becoming. Even every time you choose kindness instead of bitterness, though no one acknowledges it, you are building something enduring within yourself. It is not that you live in order to be seen. It is that you live because you have already been seen, in a way far deeper than anything human eyes could ever offer. This is an important reversal. Perhaps in the past, you lived with an unspoken question behind everything you did. Will anyone notice this? Will this effort be enough to make someone see me differently? Now, perhaps that question can become something else. Is this true to the person I want to become? Does this reflect the values I truly believe in? When the question changes, the way you live each day also begins to change, slowly yet surely. You will still have tiring days. You will still have moments when you long for someone to acknowledge you. That is completely normal, and there is nothing wrong with feeling that way. But now, those moments will no longer determine your entire sense of who you are. Chosen one, try one very small thing, beginning tomorrow. When you wake up, before you look at your phone, before you check whether anyone has sent you a message, take one quiet moment simply to remind yourself that you have value, not because of anything you are about to accomplish that day, but simply because you exist, because you are still trying, because you are still moving forward. It is not a great or dramatic act, but over time, moments like these can gradually change the way you see yourself from the inside out, instead of waiting for the opposite to happen first. Chosen one, think of someone you know, someone who has always seemed to possess a remarkable steadiness, even though their circumstances have not always been favorable. Perhaps you have wondered what makes that person different. Very likely, the answer is not that they have more than you, or that they have received more recognition than you. Very likely, the difference is that they have learned not to let the highs and lows of recognition from others determine how they feel about themselves. They still feel hurt when they are misunderstood. They still rejoice when they are appreciated. But deep within them is a part, a foundation that cannot be shaken, that does not depend on those things in order to stand firm. Chosen one, perhaps this is what you are being invited to build during this season of your life. Not indifference toward what other people think, but a steadiness deep enough that what other people think is no longer the only foundation upon which your sense of yourself rests. This does not happen in a single day. It comes through every small choice, every time you choose to believe in your own worth, even when there is no outward evidence to confirm it. And each time you do, that foundation becomes a little stronger, even if you do not notice it immediately. Chosen one, now, as these words gradually come to an end, I want you to slow down with me for a moment. Just as a long day finally settles into the quietness of evening, when the harsh light of daytime gives way to a softer, gentler light that no longer urges you to prove anything. Imagine an early morning, just as the sun begins to rise. The light is still gentle, not yet bright, only enough for you to see clearly what is right in front of you, not farther, because it does not need to be. There is no need to hurry. There is no need to race. Only a steady breath and a quietness that you have learned to cherish, instead of fearing it as you once did whenever you faced the silence in your own life. Chosen one, I do not need to repeat everything you have gone through for you to understand how far you have come from the beginning of this video until now. You have already felt it for yourself. Perhaps all that remains is simply this: being invisible in the eyes of the world does not mean being forgotten at a deeper level. The quietest seasons of your life may in fact be the very seasons in which something important is being formed. You do not need a crowded room to acknowledge your worth. You do not need to wait for someone else to change the way they see you before allowing yourself to stand firm. Perhaps all you need is to turn inward and begin believing what so many people, through so many generations, have believed and built their lives upon. That there is a presence who has never taken his eyes off you, even in the moments when you felt the loneliest. If these reflections have meaning for your journey, this may become a place you will want to return to on another evening, when you need to be reminded once again that you are not nearly as alone as you once believed. And before we part, I simply want to leave you with one very simple thought. Stand firm, right where you are. Keep going, even if no one applauds. Keep believing, even if you cannot yet see the whole picture. Chosen one, even if no one tells you this today, I want you to hear it from here. You have value. Not that you will have value, you have value right now, exactly as you are. Perhaps tomorrow, when you return to your work, to unfinished conversations, and to the same people who still have not changed the way they see you, everything on the outside will look exactly the same. That is completely normal, and I do not want you to feel disappointed if that happens. But there may be one thing that has changed, even if only a little, something within you, a small awareness, a seed of steadfastness. It has been planted during these past few minutes. And seeds like that, though they may seem small, have their own way of growing over time if you choose to nurture them each day. Through small choices, through the way you speak to yourself, through choosing to stand firm instead of collapsing every time the silence of others causes you to question your own worth. Chosen one, I believe you are going to be okay, not because every hardship will disappear overnight, but because you carry within you a strength that perhaps even you have not yet fully recognized. The strength of someone who has learned to stand firm, even when there was no one standing beside them to witness it. And if tonight you walk back into that little room again, where everything is still as quiet as before, remember this. This time, you are walking into it a little differently, not as someone who is waiting to be seen, but as someone who now knows that they have never truly been alone.